Look at these evil little devils with the wings sitting reading books. They're not really too evil, are they? Not super scary.
Hi, I'm George the Antique Nomad. Come with me as I wander the country in search of valuable vintage, amazing antiques, and cool collectibles. We'll buy, sell, and trade at antique malls, shops, and shows, estate sales, flea markets, thrift stores, anywhere people go to find really interesting things that just aren't made anymore. So come on, let's go!
Hey, it's George the Antique Nomad, and I'm at Renningers in Mount Dora again, and it's great because this is the second of the 3 extravaganzas that they have every year. This is the January edition, so there'll be one more in February. By the time you see this video, it'll be getting close to being the time for February, so you'll still have a chance to go. It's such a huge show. We showed you, I think, 2 fields the last time. I'm going to try to show you a couple more fields this time, so let's go and we'll take a look at what's out here, because there's a ton, and there's a bunch of people who weren't here last time because a lot of northern dealers come down in January. Busy day here at Renningers, that's for sure. Lots of folks out shopping and looking around and having a good time. She found some cool stuff. And a really good 5-cent slot machine with a guaranteed $6 jackpot. $6 was a lot of money back in 1940 or whenever that was made. And I imagine it's a lot more than $6 now. These folks have some really beautiful things. They've got a really nice shelf full of cast iron. Arcade and other makers. Kenton, I believe, 1920s. The race car is really great. The yellow cab with the driver is a really hard thing to find. And this car on the right is a Chrysler Airflow from 1934. That was an experimental model that they only made for a couple of years. It was the first car to be engineered completely for aerodynamics. They've got the Tonka construction set in the original box too. That's pretty neat to see. And they've got 350 on that set. You know, boxes were a big deal because most people threw them away back then. Nowadays, everybody keeps one in the box, so it's not such a big deal. But at the time, everybody threw the boxes out, so finding it new in the box is really hard. This space has some good Bakelite radios. We're not seeing as many of these out there for sale as we used to, but they have a nice bass resonance, and so there are people who really enjoy those. Got some good old lithophane clocks there. And then here we go with grinders. Now these are things you see all over the country. There's a lot of them. They were well made, so they lasted, but we've got some good companies here. Keen Cutter is made by Simmons, and that is a particularly desirable name. When you see Keen Cutter on anything, that's a good thing. Griswold, also desirable. And these are pricing in the $35 and $45 range, and that's primarily because of the names. We can pull back here and show just sort of a general shot. Lots of small things in cases. You can spend hours and hours in this place just thumbing through all these little things. I like chrome furniture, and I've never seen this table with the lamp built in before. That's a fun piece. 1970s, and it looks like it's priced at about $200, which I would think would be about correct retail for that. You see a lot of African baskets in raffia back there, different than the Native American that I've been bringing. This is a nice stand here. This is cast iron. This is going to be from right around 1895. Lots of nice detail on all of the shelves. And then you've got the figural heads. And you pull back. These are good handy pieces of furniture in small spaces or for people who like plants or that sort of thing. Doesn't take a ton of room and very sturdy. If you like Fiesta ware, and I do, this space is great in terms of quantity and supply. These are retired and specialty pieces. Most of these are not tremendously old colors. A lot of them are from the 1980s and 90s. Some of them are pretty hard to find, however. There are certain shades like lilac that are actually quite desirable amongst the new pieces, and they just have an ocean of it here. So we're going to take a walk under the oak trees here. One great thing about a hot sunny day in Florida is that in wintertime it can't get too hot, so we're talking in the 70s. And if you get a little cooked, well, there's nice places under the trees where vendors assemble as well. Under the tall oaks we have all sorts of stuff, including a booth that is advertising America's Antique Mall, which is a big antique mall in Melbourne, Florida. I have not been to yet, so let's take a look and see what kind of stuff that they've got. Hi there, folks. So this is going to be a representation of various dealers in a collective, I guess. And they've got a nice dress form here. Victorian high button boots, $24.95. They're not in great shape, but that is a great price. And the dress form here, $69.95. That's actually pretty good. Dress forms are very desirable now. People are using them for all sorts of stuff. People who collect pins are pinning them with all sorts of things. People are using them for displays like mannequins, and some people are using them to actually make clothing on. So very versatile that way. I see another pair of high button shoes. These are cute. I like the two-toning. $49.95, and that's a pretty good price on that. We've got this red enamel piece which looks like a Le Creuset. We see a lot of interest in 70s era enamel ware now. And then a nice hat block there. This space here has some interesting glass. This piece here turned upside down is actually Consolidated's Catalonian pattern. This was done in the style of Gaudi, who's so well known for the architecture in Barcelona, and that's why they called it Catalonian. It was way ahead of its time, and the color is a really deep bright green. Now, it looks like it would fluoresce. It looks like it's practically fluorescing now. That is not a guarantee that it will fluoresce under a black light, so if I get this one, I'll have to take it home and try it. These were hand blown, and you can see the pontil mark where they broke the rod off, but they generally didn't have anything other than maybe a paper label, so you have to know the pattern to identify. This looks like a check piece. People often mistake these for Fenton, but the crimping is not even on it, and Fenton had a tool where every crimp is exactly like every other one, so that's a good way to tell non-Fenton ruffled pieces from Fenton pieces. There's another piece of Consolidated right there. Well, since this booth has other pieces of Phoenix and Consolidated, I'm going to show those too. These two pitchers are also from the Catalonian line. The vase on the left is priced at $85. The pitcher on the right has like a cranberry flash. That company then ended up going out of business, and then its molds went to the Phoenix Glass Company. Phoenix made this in an opaque color, usually painted, but this is the original Consolidated with the colored wash in the background with the pheasant. Now here's a set that is Vaseline. They've tested it. It does glow under a black light. This is going to be about 1920. It might be the Central Glass Company. There were a lot of small companies in West Virginia that did these textured designs where they do gilding, and then the etching may have been done by them, or possibly what they call jeweler's etch. It was common actually for a jeweler in a town to develop their own etching on glass, so that you would have to come back to them to get more. This piece with the lid and the 5 glasses is priced at $135, and for Vaseline glass for a big set like this these days, especially having the lid, which is usually broken or lost, is a reasonable retail price for certain. Pattern glass is often overlooked in the marketplace today, but there are some really neat pieces that people don't know exist. This is a good example here. This pattern glass vase, which is going to date to the early 1900s, has lizards, geckos I suppose, on it, and it's in a base similar to what an aperon would have. Unusual piece priced at $110. Next to it, this very rare piece with the strawberry here. Very few of these were made. This is likely to be Lutz or one of the European companies, possibly Stevens and Williams out of England, but in any event, hard to find. And then this is Lutz style with the silver overlay. Silver overlay in this case is solid silver. If that broke, you'd have the silver in that pattern. It is an electroplate, and that's more desirable than the electroplated piece. Look at these evil little devils with the wings sitting reading books. They're not really too evil, are they? Not super scary. Probably made by Royal Bayreuth, although it's a little different than their devil pattern, but it looks like their work, and it does have the Made in Germany stamp. Should date to about 1910. And it's priced at $150. The devil stuff from that era all goes high because it's very collectible. I wanted to show some cool mid-century stuff that you might find out there, so you have a little bit of an idea. So the glass animals are all by Viking glass. You see on the left you've got the 2 egrets, and they're in green. The green is a very popular color then and now, but they're more common, so they're priced at $25 each. On the right, you have the long-tailed bird in that rosé color and in that lavender color. They're priced at $125 each. The reason being that Viking made those pieces in those colors at the very end of their production, right around 1977, 8, and 9, and then they went out of business. So they are actually much harder to find than the green. The fish is amber, that's a more common color, priced at $45, and the dog is priced at $110 because that one is a more widely collected pattern. And then the little ducks here are also Viking glass. You usually see those in the $20 range, but this one actually has its little label and it's ruby, so that one would probably go for a little more. And then sitting here we have some nice pairs. These are Ceramic Arts Studio. There's a good mark we can show you right there on Tragedy and Comedy, and I'll lift it up where you can see it a little better. Ceramics Art Studio, Madison, Wisconsin. They were generally done in pairs like this, so you have comedy and tragedy there, and then you have the wall dancers here. Very well made, very collectible. 1940. Well, as you can see, there's a lot of folks out today. It's a perfect day for it. Now, they do allow some things that are handmade here, so you will see things like these driftwood pieces that are made into really wonderful furniture, actually. Beautiful pieces where you get all of the depth of the natural wood. Let's turn back so you can see them a little better. These are priced in the $500 and $600 range, and I see some sold signs. I know this is still very popular with people. Look at the benches, the way that they form out of the natural wood grain. This is something unusual. This piece here, you don't see these too often. It's 1920s. And it's got the little cabinet on top of a little table. This one has the fold-out leaf. What's special about these is they're for the telephone. Yeah, they were made for candlestick phones. And so you can see they have a door in the back, and there's even a cutout for the cord to go. And so that's why it's a big, tall, open space. Nowadays, people use these by the front door to hold any manner of things that they need. But it's a cool piece, and you don't see them very often. Also wanted to show these ballerinas because I just think they're really fantastic. Extruded aluminum. They are just cool. These are actually folks who follow me, so glad to have you with me. And yeah, you had cool stuff. It was fun talking. I'm going to walk through the food court. They're getting some stuff ready this morning. Shish kebab skewers here at Siri Grill, and pizza and hibachi on the other side. So if you get out today, there'll be lunch. And down in the flats, we have a whole bunch of different dealers. Again, tents and tents full. Lots of Pyrex here that we see. I like the mushroom pattern. That's not one I run into very often, and they've got the whole set there. That's pretty great. They're asking $12 for the large mixing bowl with the mushrooms, which actually seems like a good price to me. And let's see what else we have here. Some old Coca-Cola coolers over in this space. They look like they're in original unrestored condition, which is actually preferable to a lot of collectors. When the paint is more than 50% there, we really recommend against restoring, because original condition is, you know, people are more willing to accept things as they really were and not a sort of sanitized version of reality where we make everything shiny and new as if we were back in that era. It's cool to see that these things were really used. Typewriters still very popular. I had a request for one earlier. I don't know if they'd seen this one yet. It's a Smith Corona Electric, one of the early electrics from the 50s, and it's in green. Good color. I like old beer trays, and I always take a look at them. These are priced in the $30 and $40 range. Some are $20 and $25. That's about what I charge for these usually, unless they're pre-prohibition. But they have some good ones that you don't see so often. Fort Schuyler out of Utica Brewing. This one is Rheingold Gold Crown beers. I haven't seen this one before. United States Brewing Company, 1849. A lot of these were made in the 50s and 60s as promotions, and even into the 70s, like the Schlitz Malt Liquor Bull here. I wanted to point this lamp out. This is glass, and this is going to be from about 1980. We are seeing a resurgence in interest in brass, and we are seeing a generation that likes pink again and remembers things from the 1980s, because a lot of nostalgia starts with grandparents, and this is what grandma had in 1983. And they are starting to be very collectible. This one's priced at $250. I have seen them selling in that range now. Also from that era is this piece, which is a really cool lucite shaped chandelier with the lilies, very popular motif in the 1980s. It's a little strange looking on the table, but hanging up that would be pretty phenomenal, and it's priced at $50. It might come home. See the compass head inside. A little hard to see in the sun. Williams & Son, yeah, this is an interesting ship's balance, and that is going to date to probably about 1920, priced at $650. Old binnacles, ship's wheels, anything nautical that's genuine is very collectible. Here's a great grouping of these really good pieces that are airline related. You see these Barcelona chairs, and we've got the TWA piece. This is a dealer from Ohio who has some signs that we did not see at the last show. The soda shop, which is Coca-Cola, is priced at about $1,200, probably would sell for around $1,000. These large signs are in such demand right now, and these are originals, and that makes a big difference. They're not in wonderful shape necessarily because they're old, but that is part of the appeal. Okay, this might be the coolest thing I've seen in a long time. It looks to be the nose off of an airplane in fiberglass. Be a great little shed or a cool little escape booth, maybe a place to go hang out if you work for a high-tech firm. I guess they have rooms to go if you're sad and feel maligned. You have a place to go cry. Well, here's a nice crying room for you. It is really neat. It's apparently off a fighter jet, fiberglass, and really not something I've ever seen for sale. So this is another fellow from Ohio who's just come down, and they have all sorts of crazy stuff in their booth. I say fellow, but I think there's a couple of them here. They've got all sorts of tools and license plates and catalogs and little stuff, and it isn't something that's going to show well necessarily here, but I bought some cool things from him, and I'll show you those in a little. It'll be fun to show you this because padlocks are definitely collectible now. There's always been a market for old railroad locks and that sort of thing, but now we're seeing padlocks in general. If they're older and have the key, they can be pretty valuable. I see prices in here ranging from about $15 on up. I know I've sold for $10 and $15 and $20 on some of these, and then some of the rarer and larger ones. These here with the odd shaped keys are usually for railroads or other industrial uses. And then here's a bunch of older ones, Victorian with and early 1900s with the brass pieces that slide open so that it would actually cover the lock and protect it from snow or dirt. Here's some railroad ones. These are more simple, but you can see the initials on them. New York, New Haven, and Hartford Railroad there. This one is the Southern Pacific. A couple of Southern Pacifics. This one is Chicago and Northwestern on the right. That's another New York, New Haven, and Hartford. Canadian Pacific and the brass are always more. The patent date on this is about 1940, so that gives you an idea of sort of the end of that production. They're making new versions of these old Edison light bulbs, but here are some originals with the filament where you can see them inside. These are priced about $15 a piece, which is really good for the old ones. And they are making new ones that look like this because people love industrial lighting and they're realizing they need this kind of a bulb to make the look correct. Matchboxes. Very collectible. Hot Wheels too, of course, especially the early red lines. But these matchboxes, a lot of these on the left are super fast from the 70s. When you see 75, that's the year that those came out. But very collectible. The early ones with gray wheels, like this bus here with the gray wheels, that's the very original color of wheels. The Dunlop truck also. And then you see they switch to the black like the bottle truck on the left there. Steeler also has a nice selection of pipes. You see the meerschaum with the carving. You see the clay pipes below. The skeleton or skull is a pretty desirable one. People like these German ones with the porcelain bowl on a cherry stem. And then there's a corn cob. So a good selection of pipes here. Bakelite in the middle, 55 on the Bakelite because that's more difficult to find. Here are Cracker Jack premiums. These were in the Cracker Jack toys themselves. Nowadays they give you connections to stuff online where you play games, and sometimes you get a little paper toy, but in the old days they actually gave you real toys, little metal toys, little tops. things that were originally, they even gave out these pins. This is a very scarce and valuable piece, this pin with the maiden on it. Most of these are going to date between about 1910 and 1950, and they are very collectible in and of themselves. These are all priced mostly at about $10. I didn't see these here yesterday, but look at these. If you like Granada gold, boy, there is a set for you. Really amazing ornate chairs. These are going to be probably late 70s, and they are crazy interesting. Great shape. So we're going to go down another aisle that we haven't seen before and look and see what we find. This aisle is just out of the oak tree, so they don't get the shade, but they do seem like they're getting a lot of traffic. It's very busy here today. I'm actually letting my friend run my booth for a little while while I go out and look, but I'm going to have to go back and sell. This booth has a lot of cool modernism.
Like I know when she's going to love this.
The Italian chrome chairs and leather.
This is like what she wants.
Some really fun lamps. Anything that you see with these shapes is going to be pretty desirable. I believe this one, which is
I love it, she loves it, right? That's what she said.
Oh, let's see who the designer is. I think it tells us. George Kovacs. And that one is priced at $175 with the original shades. I have to admit, one of my favorite styles of lamps personally are these little bubble lamps. This one is one I've never seen before. The chrome bubbles all emanate from the base. It's very effervescent looking. Really cool piece from probably about 1970. We see these in Florida because they were very popular here when Florida was really building in that period. Usually priced in a few $100 range. Another thing I'll show you, because we've seen them in other colors, but here is the Erica phone in turquoise, hard to find color, priced at $85, which is about the going rate for this color in working order. I'm on my own today, but I'm going to take a picture of these for the benefit of my cameraman, who keeps telling me these 70s patterns from Mikasa and other companies with the flowers are going to start being collectible. And boy, look at this setup. They've got the whole thing. And I have to say, when you see them in a thrift store on a shelf, I don't think much of them. When I see them all together in one place as a collection, it's a pretty cool look. And I see that they have prices as little as $5 a dinner plate, and these are stoneware. You can use them in the oven and the dishwasher. I can see why people might start collecting these. So here's a future collectible for you resale. I wanted to show you a couple of these things because they're coming out of the woodwork now, or actually out of guys' shops. These tool racks. Most of these were thrown away. They were in hardware stores in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and when those American companies, this was New Britain Machine Company out of Connecticut, when these companies went out of business, they mostly were thrown away. Some guys took them home and used them in their shops, and a couple of them were left alone, like this one here for arrow anchoring devices. This actually has the whole display on it. That first one was priced at $65, this one's priced at $85. The reason for those prices, besides the fact that they can be useful if you just need a rack and they're neat looking, is because of interest in industrial items, which has really picked up now that it's dawning on us that we don't do a lot of this in America anymore, so there's interest again, and since so many were thrown away, there's not a lot left. These stacked lucite tables and the lamp are really beautiful pieces. We see a lot of interest in lucite in Florida. I've mentioned that before. It's something that cleans well, it looks great, it keeps things light and airy. They've got a great bench set here too. These are all vintage pieces. Very nice collection. See these lamps here as well. A lot of these actually are signed. If you look, the ones made in Florida, a lot of the artists actually would sign these pieces, so there isn't a lot of scholarship on who did what. I think that that's an area for future consideration, because if someone can figure out who made these and if they were significant designers, I think that there will be continued increases in interest. And here in fact is an example of a signature. This is on that lucite bench set. Les Prismatiques, it says. L-E-S-P-R-I-S-M-A-T-I-Q-U-E-S. This set is priced at $2,500, and to find it without scratches and damage is very difficult because people, would sit on them with rivets and jeans and keys in their pockets, so you can get them buffed out, but this set's in perfect. I wanted to show a little bit of painted kitchen furniture because these pieces were painted originally, and a lot of people who like painted furniture look for kitchen pieces because they're versatile. This the Enamel Top Table, for example. It's got a great patterning on the top. This is going to be from the 1940s. You pull the leaves out and you get some extra space. And then you have this piece here, the Kitchen Queen. Great way to have lots of extra counter space in a small place where you don't have enough. You get counter and cupboard space. These pieces are starting to be popular again. There was a period of time where everyone was having built-ins in kitchen, but now people are looking for farmhouse decor, and they're realizing that rows of identical cabinets don't really match that so well. So while I was out videotaping, of course I couldn't help but shop a little. I went to a space and was very happy to find these two pieces of glass. The one on the left is Blanco. It's got the original silver foil label, which was their original label used from the late 30s until 1957, and then again in the 60s, 70s, and then they changed it in the 80s. The ruby is a hard color to find. The pinch bottle is something they've done for years. You see it in all the colors they made pretty much. But this particular one in the ruby was done in the 40s. It's a very difficult color to find. They didn't make that long. On the right is a Murano piece, green with the gold striations. And this one actually has some controlled bubbling that you may be able to see. There we go. I don't know whether this is a designer. It could be, and I will have to look at the bottom very carefully. They sometimes have tiny, tiny, tiny little in-size signatures. I got these two for $65 for the pair. The Ruby Blanco alone is worth $65, so that was a nice price. And then my friend Jill left this for us to hold while she is looking around. She likes to buy all sorts of interesting body part things and use them for displays of various sorts. She's going to use this as a stand, and yes, it is the bottom of a mannequin, and it's fiberglass from the 60s. Mannequins and mannequin parts are pretty popular now, and oh my. And speaking of oh my, then I bought a bunch of little stuff from a dealer. I paid $25 for all of this. I, of course, as you've seen, like emblems. I like political pins. This one, when Ford ran for election, he was one of the last to have a flash view, see how it changes from his face to President Ford. And he lost, and they didn't distribute all of them, so when they dedicated his museum in 1981, they put ribbons on them and gave them out to people there. President Ford, of course, was the only unelected president in our history, and his presidential museum is really interesting because the first thing you see when you walk in are the doors from the Watergate Hotel where the burglary took place. This dealer also had some pinups, little pinup matches here. The top one's 60s, the bottom two are 1940s and 50s. There's a football emblem for Nebraska. Let me know if I can help you folks at all. I do YouTube on Wednesdays, and so I'm filming for that. And then we've got the Nebraska Cornhuskers token, and we've got 3 little DAV tags. These were disabled American veterans. They would do these as promotions. And on the back it says postage guaranteed. You'd send, if you lost your keys, you'd have this on it. It'd have your license plate. They'd send it to Cincinnati, and then the DAV would have a record of your license plate number and send it back to you. It was a very popular promotion that made them a lot of money until auto thieves started figuring out that they could just steal your car, and that's when they quit being a thing. These are all 1950s vintage with the metal rims. Below is an Italian micro mosaic bracelet. All of these are little tiny pieces of glass that are inlaid, and Italian micro mosaic jewelry was made both before and after the Second World War. This particular piece being a bracelet is nice. It's of decent quality. There are some that are really refined. This piece dates, I believe, to about 1950. Bel Air is a Chevy emblem from the 1950s. Anything Bel Air sells right away because they're very popular cars. And then the last thing I have, and speaking of naughty things, the top one's a reproduction, the bottom one is original. These are called Tijuana Bibles. I can't really open them up and show you what they show inside because they are all X-rated. These were done originally, the one on the bottom is a good example, in the 1930s and 40s. They were called Tijuana Bibles because they were illegal to produce in the United States, so all the printing was done in Mexico, and because they were illegal already anyway, they loved to take cartoon characters and have them doing all sorts of naughty things, and they're very anatomically correct. It's actually very surprising considering their age that this was going on. We think of it as a more innocent time, but you know, people are people. The reproduction ones sell for about 10 to 15. The originals in this condition should sell for about 25. In really clean condition they can sell for more. I paid $25 for everything that you see in this particular image, and you know, the little pieces are probably $3 to $5 each, but the bracelet alone was worth 25 to 30. So the show is going to wind down today, and then we'll be back here for the February Extravaganza, which will be the last of the season.
Thanks for joining me again in the fun and fascinating antique community, here where online meets the real world. Please click the subscribe button below, click the bell to be notified when new videos upload, leave a comment below, and hit thumbs up to like this video. Links to our online social media daily posts and our items for sale are in the description. This is George at the Antique Nomad. Bye for now.